Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify nation, and if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at troubleshooting tools. We'll be discussing software troubleshooting tools, protocol analyzers, hardware troubleshooting tools, and then finally, we're going to take a look at a Syslog server as a troubleshooting tool. This episode is part of my series on enterprise networking, security, and automation for the CCNA. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. As you start doing your troubleshooting, there's some software out there that will help you do your troubleshooting. The first one here is Network Management System Tools. Now, this is network software, and what it does is it goes out and it can monitor different things. It can do device level monitoring. It can look at your routers. It can look at your switches, and it can look at the devices and the interfaces and the different components, CPU, RAM, and monitor all of that for you. It can look at the configurations. It can also analyze your fault management. If you have some redundancy pass setups and some failovers, it will monitor that for you. Now, these tools, you can use it for investigative purposes and correct your network problems. That they can be open source and free, but it does take time to set up, or they can be proprietary, where it does cost you money, but a lot of times it's click and point and you are done. You can look at knowledge bases. These are online resources that are full of information. Cisco, Microsoft, any major manufacturer has a knowledge base of their product where if you have problems, there's a good chance that it's probably listed there. It's done by the different vendors, and you rely on these quite a lot as you start doing your troubleshooting. And one of the best ways to use these knowledge bases is through internet search engines. Internet search engines search these knowledge bases, and a lot of times when you put in your problem, they'll take you to the knowledge base for the problem from your vendor. And that's really nice. And I'll be honest with you, Google does a lot better job organizing that information and searching that information than a lot of the vendors do. And the third software troubleshooting tool here is these baselining tools. We talked about creating baselines earlier. Now use some softwares for doing it. And there's a lot of tools out there, and it'll do the automating part for you. And it'll do the network documentation and baselining. It'll be done for you. Now, yes, it does take a little bit of work to set these up. There's open source free, but you have to spend the blood and sweat to get it set up and running. And there's proprietary. You have to spend money, but a lot of times it's click and go. Now, these baselining tools, they help with common documentations. They can use CDP to map out the neighbors, and once you figure out what the neighbors are, then they can go to those devices and figure out those neighbors, and they can draw you up a map dynamically on what's happening. We can look at update network software and hardware documentation. It can go out there and say, okay, you have several devices out here that have old software. We have updates for them. And even some software or some of these tools, they'll even do the updates for you. And when you start looking at these tools, they become fairly cost effective because you're not doing all this manually. To go out manually and to check all your devices, to do the updates, to document it, to go in and use CDP to find your neighbors, that's going to take a lot of your time. If you have software to do it, it's going to be very efficient for you and probably a big cost savings to the company, where you can work on the real problems instead of the documentation. Another tool we have here is protocol analyzers, and probably the most popular protocol analyzer out there is Wireshark. What you do with Wireshark is you run it on one of your computers, laptop, on desktop. You plug your device into the network. It turns that NIC into what we call promiscuous mode, so it can see all types of traffic, just not what's destined for it. And then it will start logging all of that information it sees. As you log this information, when you get done, you can do filters on it, basically a search. And you can filter out for different things you want to see. In this example, we are filtering on DHCP, and we can see that we are going through the DORA process. We did a DHCP discover, an offer, a request. I bet you there's an acknowledgement next. And you can see the information that has gotten passed. So up here is sort of a summary pane. Down here is a details pane. And then if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts, down at the bottom, they have the binary, the actual bits that were being sent across your network. And so Wireshark is allowing you to see this. This DHCP conversation doesn't have to be for the device you are on. It could be for something else on the network. Now, all of a sudden with Wireshark, you can see what somebody else's IP address is. You can see what their MAC address is. You could do a man-in-the-middle attack. And pretty soon you're filtering all traffic through you between that person who just did this DHCP process here and whoever they're communicating with. And you can see all that information going through. The other thing is it will display out all this information. And if you sent the password in clear text, so if you sent your password here in clear text, it will show your password in clear text. If you log into your router or switch using Telnet and somebody is using Wireshark to see that, they will see what password you just entered in here. They will see that. Protocol analyzers, they can be used as troubleshooting tools. Take the example here of our DHCP process again. We have the discover, we have the offer, we have the request, and we can come down here and we can see the information that happens at each step. Here we have dark blue highlighted right here. All the rest is light blue. This dark blue signifies that this is the selected line, that this is the information that is being displayed here. Down here we have our discover, and we can go in here and we can look at the information. We can look at the information that starts off this conversation, and if this is wrong, we can go in here and we can troubleshoot it. If it has all the right information, then we know it's not the DHCP process. So we can use protocol analyzers for troubleshooting. I hope you're liking this episode on troubleshooting tools. If you have the time, please leave a comment and let me know what you think about troubleshooting tools. You can also visit my website at KevTechify.com for all of my details and how to get these episodes in video and podcast form. There are several hardware tools that are going to help you with your troubleshooting. One of the ones people use the most here are our digital multimeters. And what this does is it measures electrical values. So we look at electrical values here, and it will read things like voltage, current, and resistance. And it will allow you to help diagnose your physical layers on what's happening. Is my physical layer working correctly? Do I have power running to my devices? If you want to know how to use a digital multimeter, and I hate to say this, go to YouTube. There's thousands of videos out there how to use that, how to actually probably do what you want to do. Am I actually getting voltage through my cable connected here on my switch? How do I measure that? What is the voltage? Then we have cable testers and cable analyzers. These will look at your networking cables. The first one here, this cable tester, is a handheld device for testing various types of data communication cabling. Most of the time we see UTP, unshielded twisted pair, copper with RJ45s on the end, the network, the Ethernet cable that we see. Though we see testers for that, but you can have testers for fiber. You can have testers for coax. Then we have cable analyzers, and these are multifunction handheld devices, and they're used to test and certify copper and fiber connections. Now, a cable tester will tell you if it works. The cable analyzer will certify to a standard. Now, what do I mean by that? The cable tester will tell you, yes, you have good connections. We have electrical connections through there, but it won't tell you how fast it will be able to handle. It won't tell you, will it meet Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 7 standards. That's what the cable analyzer will do. It'll tell you it'll meet those standards, and a lot of times it will do the certification for you. It will certify it. If you're doing a lot of on-premise wiring and you need Cat 6 standards, what you can do is you can test each one of those wires you ran with the punching down, and it'll tell you, yes, it is Cat 6. The device will certify it, and then you can give a report to whoever you're doing the installation for saying, yep, when I left here, everything was certified Cat 6. Another tool you can use here is the Portable Network Analyzer. And now these are specialized devices, and they're used for troubleshooting switch networks and VLANs. What you do is plug it in to your network. And wherever you connect it in, you tell it to do its process, and it'll come back and it'll give you a whole big analysis of that port you are connected into. VLANs, what IP addresses, default gateways, and depending upon the analyzer you're using, it will go through and it will help identify the route to the default gateway, the route to the internet, what hops you have to go through. Some of these are pretty amazing, but with the amazing factor also comes the price tag. Some of these portable network analyzers, they're as big as maybe a loaf of bread, 10 inches by 6 inches by maybe 2 or 3 inches thick. And these network analyzers, some of them come in at the price tags of $20,000. But you don't have to go back and SSH into switches and do CDP neighbors and do trace routes and ping. It's all done for you. So if you're doing a lot of troubleshooting, you may want to think about getting this one. And then the last one, Cisco Prime here with NAM. NAM is Network Analysis Module. Now, this isn't a complete hardware solution. You do need some software. And what this is, it's a browser-based interface that displays device information performance analysis in a switched and routed environment. It'll look at your devices and it will give you feedback on it. It will do kind of what these portable network analyzers do. And it'll give it to you in a nice to easy read form. And of course, being nice and easy and convenient, there is a big price tag that typically goes along with this, including you need to have the Cisco Prime infrastructure. Using Syslogs is a great tool for troubleshooting. What we can do is send your text-based log messages. You know, the messages that pop up as when you're CLI'd into your device, you're using a console cable and you're typing in something and it pops up a system message. You can have those text-based log messages sent to a log server. These log messages can be sent to the console, they can be sent to your VTY lines, they can be placed in your memory, and like I said, they can be placed on a Syslog server. Depending upon how complex your network is, you can have them sent to different locations. Now, the log messages fall into one of 8 levels. Over here we have our levels. 1 of 8, 0 to 7. Once again, thank you computer science people for starting with 0 as the first one. But 0 to 7 gives us our 8 levels. The lowest level, the lowest level, the least severe level is level 7. So that's down here on the bottom. And the most severe, the highest level, is level 0. That's up on the top. By default, the console displays level 6 messages. So this is the console default. And when we say displays level 6, it displays level 6 and it displays anything more severe in the higher levels or the lower numbers. Here's an example of how to send your system messages to a Syslog server. We're assuming you have a Syslog server set up somewhere. There's some free ones out there. There's some pay ones. It's fairly easy to set up a Syslog server. Once you have that set up, you go to the device that you want to monitor those messages. And here we're going to do it on a router. From global configuration mode, we set logging host and then 209.165.200.225. This is your server address. This is the Syslog server address. So any message we have are going to be sent there. Then we're going to say logging, and we're going to set up traps. Once again, a trap is set up on that remote device, not the server, but the other end. And a trap is we're going to be looking for these devices, or we're going to be looking for these particular actions. When these actions are going to occur, I'm going to send that log file, that log message to our server. And so we're going to set one up here. We're going to set up a trap here for notifications. Now, what does that mean? Right here, we can see level 5 is notifications. And so anything that's a level 5 notification or more severe will be sent. So that gives us this line right here. And then the last step here is you need to make sure you turn it on. So make sure you turn it on. Set up your server, set up your traps, and then make sure you turn your logging on. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on troubleshooting tools. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. There you can find out how to get all these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on enterprise networking, security, and automation for the CCNA. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on enterprise networking, security, and automation for the CCNA. Once again, I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.